Hi there! So today I'm going to show you guys how to make a t-shirt quilt without a sewing machine. So for this quilt I used 35 different t-shirts. You can use however many or few you want. It's just basically how big you want the quilt to be. And mine measured around roughly 5 feet by 7 feet. So the first step is to cut out the squares for each t-shirt's design, which will make up each block of the quilt. And this quilt pattern allows you to see both the front and back view of your t-shirts. So when you're cutting, you want to make sure that when you're cutting out the front square that you're also including whatever you want to be able to see on the back. You will want to make a guide square out of cardboard or paper. That's what I used. I made mine 12 inches by 12 inches, and this will just help you to make an evenly traced outline for your block, which will help when deciding where to cut later and where to sew. So like I said, I made my guide square 12 inches by 12 inches. It's just basically a piece of cardstock, and I chose that size because that was what fit most of the designs of my t-shirts. I was able to include the entire design in that block. But you can make yours as little or as big as you want. And then using your guide square, you're going to outline that square with washable marker on the front and the back of the t-shirt. And this outline will determine where you want to cut later and where to sew. So when cutting, you want to cut about 1 inch out from this outline. You don't want to cut on that outline because you're going to need that little extra bit of fabric to help with sewing later so that you have kind of something to hold on to. So once you've cut out your front and back squares, you can just remove your excess t-shirt material. I used it for other craft projects like my t-shirt rag rug, but you can do whatever you want with it. And then you're going to flip the front and back squares so that the designs are facing each other and they're essentially inside out. And then you're going to trace the line of your guide square again, but on the inside side. And this outline will be used for sewing. So once you have your outline, you're going to use your needle and thread and sew these two pieces of fabric together along the traced lines. And then I left about a 2-inch gap at the end, so the square was totally sewed together except for 2 inches. And that's just so I could flip it back inside out or outside out, so that my design is where I want it to be, and then I just tuck in those little extra pieces of fabric and sew that little gap together. And that is how you make each block. It's super simple. It's just kind of like sewing a pillow, but you're not stuffing it. And you're just going to repeat this step for every t-shirt that you have. I tried to use like colored thread for the t-shirts so that it would blend in more, but you can choose whatever color you want. It doesn't really matter. And then once you have sewn all of your blocks together for your quilt, you will begin the arduous task of sewing all of it together by hand. I'm not gonna lie, this took a really long time, but it's worth it. So first you want to lay your squares out in the pattern that you wish them to be, and then you're going to sew them together. I butted each block up against the adjacent one so that I could just use the needle and thread and sew them together. And it's helpful to use safety pins so you can hold them in place while you're sewing them together. I also used 2 pieces of sewing thread for each connecting line between each block. Just so that it's more reinforced, because it is a very heavy material once you have all of them sewn together, so you want it to be strong enough that it's not going to tear. And I used one color for each of the t-shirts, so if the left t-shirt was white and the right t-shirt was blue, I used a blue thread and a white thread, and that kind of causes them to bleed into each other, the two colors, which I thought was kind of cool. But also it just makes sense, I guess. And I just continued doing this over and over again until I had all of my squares sewn together. So yeah, it takes a really long time, but when you finally have it done, it's totally worth it, because then you have this cool t-shirt quilt. And so it's fairly easy, it just takes a long time. And it's also very heavy, so it's very like comfortable and warm, and I really like using it as a blanket. It's also a cool way to hold all my memories from like t-shirts and things in the past. I also love that this design allows me to see both the front and the back of the t-shirts. But yeah, that's about it for this project. I hope you guys like this and maybe try it out. And thank you for watching.